to say I was raised in the church because I don't want to say my family was very faithful or anything, but I went to church growing up, just as most people in my family, like I feel like most kids are, but obviously didn't really know what was being said, didn't really feel any kind of connection, just was going with my mom. And so when I was about 14, I decided that I would put my trust in Christ. So I was about to be a freshman in high school. I was a freshman in high school, and I put my trust in Christ at a softball camp at Baylor University, actually, back when I thought I was going to be a D1 athlete. And that was what I thought would be a really big turning point for me, and in a way it was, but I still just didn't know what I was doing, as most people who first put their trust in Christ do. And so I remember them saying, don't let your faith be put on the back burner. And that's exactly what I did when I got home, because I had no idea what I was supposed to do. And so my first 3 years of high school go by, and I am the worst child that a parent could ever ask for. I am getting in so much trouble all the time. My mom is just having fits dealing with me. I was like the typical rebellious child. And saying that now is so weird because I can't see myself doing any of that anymore. But I mean, I was the worst. I made life so hard for my mom, because I also come from a twice divorced family. So it was just me and my mom growing up most of my life. And so she had a lot of the responsibility that a father would usually have in the home. And obviously she wasn't able to do that perfectly because that's not supposed to be just for one person. So basically my first 3 years of high school, I was on lockdown with my mother because I couldn't stay out of trouble. And my mom was really trying to bring me back to the faith, and she was trying to lead by example in that way. And she would, leave little devotionals out for me every morning, and she would pray for me, and I accepted it. And it wasn't like I was turning away, I wasn't rejecting God, but in a way I was, because I wasn't having any part of it, because I just didn't want to quit what I was doing, because that's what sin does. And so about halfway through my junior year of high school, I got invited back to church with a teammate of mine and her mom, and her mom and my mom were friends, and we started going to church every weekend. And I started going to FCA in high school, and that's where I really started to kind of figure out who I was in Christ and what that actually meant, and that I didn't want to be living my life in the way that I had been for so long anymore, just putting all of my identity in boys, or what people thought of me, what I looked like, what I thought I needed to do to please other people. And so when I was 18, I decided to get baptized, and that's when I really felt like my relationship with the Lord kind of took off, because before then I just wasn't walking with him. And so 18, senior year, about to go into college, and I am literally just actually starting my walk with Christ, and that was terrifying to me, because I was comfortable in my church at home. I knew those people, they knew me, they knew my story, they loved me for it, and so I was about to get ready to leave home and have to find a church on my own, and I didn't know how I was going to do that. And so I kept walking with the Lord, kept stumbling a little bit, but I at least had a community at home that was able to support me, kind of guide me, direct me. So I come to Southwestern, and my first weekend here, I end up finding a church where I am now. I go to River Rock, like some people here, and that was a huge blessing that I didn't know that I needed at the moment. And coming to college and finding your own church is one of the scariest things that I've ever done, because I didn't feel like I knew enough to be able to discern what was good and what was not, because here I am just fresh out of the new life womb, and I was having to, kind of figure this out on my own. And so, needless to say, the Lord led me where I was supposed to be, thankfully. But even in my freshman year of college, I feel like it's really difficult to figure out who you are, who your friends are, figure out, what your place is in a church, what your place is on your team, within school, what you want to do with your major. So obviously there's a ton of things floating around, and I was going to church, going to a small group, but I wasn't really invested in it. And looking back on it now, I had just kind of been living in this surface level area of my faith, because I was putting so much in my sport, in my relationship at the time, into school, everything else that wouldn't let me focus on all the hard stuff that I was actually dealing with in my heart. And so I kept going to small groups and to church, and I started learning a little bit more. I felt God softening my heart a little bit. And then we went home for the summer and, kind of got out of the routine of things a little bit. But then coming back my sophomore year was when I think God really got a hold of me and kind of shook me awake and told me what I was supposed to be doing. And it was at that time where he called me to be a small group leader for our church. And that's when I started learning a lot about myself, what it means to lead, who Christ is, what it means to be a disciple. And not to say that I didn't struggle through that while I was doing that, but the biggest thing that changed from my freshman year to my sophomore year was immersing myself in a community of people who knew that I was struggling, and they weren't going to let me do that on my own. And so it was like I was just living with my life on an open, like an open book, and all those people that were standing right beside me and walking with me, they knew everything that was going on, and they weren't going to let me fall. And even if I did fall, they were there to challenge me and to give me grace and love, but also they were there to watch me and let me know that, what I was doing, if I was dealing with a sin or if I was struggling in some way, to give it to God and to not just be a slave to that. And I think once I started leading other people is when that really became super apparent to me, because I was like, man, people are watching me now. I really have to step it up. I still was kind of feeling that prideful, selfishness of who am I actually doing this for? I got super involved. Obviously, I lead worship every Tuesday night, lead my small group, lead on Sunday mornings at church, in our band, but I still felt stuck in this pridefulness, which I feel like is really hard to escape, because I feel like that's just in our nature, to be selfish. But over these past couple years, I've really learned how to trust in the Lord and what that actually means to surrender my sin to Him and surrender my struggles to Him. And the community of people that I have found here at Southwestern are literally going to be the people that I am with till the day that we leave this earth. These people are family, they're my community. God has placed them in my life in the most perfect ways and at the most perfect moments, and I cannot thank Him any more for that. And so basically started out a little rebel child, and now the Lord has just done so much, and I'm so thankful for that. But to just wrap up with a little piece of advice, I guess, what I learned from, getting into college as a Christian, being in college as a Christian. Number one, being a Christian at Southwestern is hard, and I think it's okay to remember that, but to also remember that Jesus told us it was going to be hard, and to remember that being rejected by the world is not a personal thing, That's with them and God, but it's our job to continue to go out and to share his love with others and to share his, the mission that he's given us. And I think that's something that was a really good reminder, just to persevere for Christ and for the kingdom, because there's such a bigger purpose at hand than getting your feelings hurt by someone not wanting to hear about your faith. And there's so many ways to do it too that aren't super overt and just in your face. There's so many ways to just love people, and I think that's something that I've really learned how to do so well through my friends, through my church, through just the Lord himself. But I think being able to, the number one thing that I want to leave y'all with is to find a community that will challenge you and help you grow, but that loves you through all of it, but won't let you just stay where you're at either. I think that's one of the most important things that I've learned, and that has been one of the biggest saving graces that I have had in my time walking with the Lord at Southwestern. So what's up?
Hi guys, my name's Blake. I'm also a senior. And so I'm just gonna share just my testimony of how, just kind of a little bit about my background growing up, and then what it's been like being a Christian in college. So I grew up in a Christian household. We all went to church, like my family and everything, but I would never say that my faith has been like a central aspect of my life. Like my parents and I, we would go to church and we would have conversation afterwards, and we would pray and stuff before dinner and after dinner and stuff like that, but we would never have deep conversations about, okay, why do you believe this to be true? Like, how do you defend your faith? Like, growing up, I never had those types of conversations with my parents. And I went to like Christian summer camps and stuff like that. I went to Bible school. I went to a Christian high school. But it never, growing up, did I feel like, okay, Christianity is a core fundamental aspect of who I am as a person. Like, I believed and I knew that it was true, but I was never like, oh, this is the number one most important aspect of my life. And I think coming to college was just kind of a little bit of a reset, because I came from a background where, yes, Christianity, like, we did believe, but it was never super important, and then coming and it being very intense, and I think that was overwhelming, and it made me kind of analyze, okay, is this something that I really care about? And I'm like, okay, yes, because I saw just how Nathan and CP love people, and I mean, that was just the biggest thing, was seeing how people just love each other and just radiate Jesus' love, and so that was probably the biggest thing. And I had a conversation with Brad Colley probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and a lot of what we talked about was, how do you be a Christian in college and deal with people who are not believers and still showing them that love that you have for them, because I'm somebody that, like, I care a lot about the relationships that I have with people, but I've always been fearful about sharing just what I believe and why I believe Christianity to be true, mainly because I don't want to lose those relationships that I have with people who aren't on the same page, who don't believe. And so I think just looking back at that, I mean, and it was probably a week ago that I was like, okay, this is something that is just important to address and acknowledge, that, okay, hiding your faith or hiding just what you believe from somebody else isn't helpful. It's just a form of protection that's not going to be beneficial to anyone. It's not going to be beneficial to you because you're not going to grow, and it's not going to be beneficial to them because you don't know who else has the opportunity to teach them about the gospel, and you don't know how many different chances there are that you can share the gospel with them. And so I think that has been something that I've wrestled with, is how can I share the gospel with them, and B, show them that I love them without kind of just shoving it in their face and it being a complete turn off to them. And so, I mean, I've had conversations with Nathan, and I've had conversations just with other friends, and I talked to my dad about it too. It's just the best way that I can kind of understand is just show them that you love them. And it doesn't have to be, hey, go to church. It could be, hey, my friends and I are going to, I don't know, go play soccer this afternoon. Or you should come to small group, or we're going to hang out and stuff later. It doesn't have to be, hey, you need to come to church on Sunday. It can just be very subtle ways of showing people that you love them that ultimately and gradually can lead them to Jesus, because you're not going to change their heart. You don't have that power. Jesus has that power, but you can still be an active piece in doing that. And so that was probably the biggest thing for me. Just just pretty much this year. Because again, like I said before, I've always known that it was true, and I've always believed, but it's never been a core aspect of who I am. Like, my faith had never been like that before. And I think just over, more so this last semester, understanding what it really means to be a Christian, because I kind of analyzed it as, okay, if you're a Christian, you have to do A, B, and C. Like, you can't have sex before marriage, or you can't do all these different things. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do all this, because it just feels like it's just another list or set of rules that I have to follow. But just understanding that, okay, those are just designed to help you, like, grow as a person, and also help others see the love of Jesus. It's not designed to harm you. It's just designed to ultimately bring you closer to God. So that's probably been the biggest thing for me, is just understanding that, okay, faith does not have, it's not meant to be restrictive. It's meant to keep you from sinning and ultimately just ruining your life. And so, I mean, that's just been the biggest thing for me, is just understanding that, okay, it's a gift to be able to not only come to school, but be able to go to church and worship, or just worship in any setting like this whatsoever, and just not taking that for granted. Because for me, at least, going to TNW or going to FCA or going to church a lot of times, it's like, oh, I have to do this. And so that ultimately takes away, for me, it takes away the message of, okay, what am I actually learning here? Like, how can I continue to grow in my faith? So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Hey y'all, I'm CP. I'm also a senior at CP Stories. I'm like Maddie. Closer. Oh, sorry. So I'm CP, if you didn't hear me before, because I wasn't holding the mic close enough, apparently. I'm also a senior, and I run cross country and track here at Southwestern. And like the people before, like Maddie and like Blake, I'm just gonna share like how I've gone through college. I'm gonna give a little bit of background on like how I grew up, and then tell you how I've gone through college as a Christian. Growing up, kind of like Maddie said, I was kind of just going to church. I think around the age of 8, sports weeks later, I come to school. I meet Nathan. I meet our buddy, our RA at the time, not really our friend just yet, Eli. And both those guys played a big part. The first weekend, they're like, hey, do you want to go to church? And I was really hesitant. Like, I haven't been since I was 8 years old. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't even know what church is like now. But I went, and we ended up going to the church that Eli had been going to. He was a sophomore at the time, RRA. And it's funny. It was a sermon. It was a lot about the church's finances, which is always a good first church visit to go back to. I know Nathan and I have brought a lot of people to church, and it's like we talked, the church's finances come up, and they're like, you just hope that they still got the message that came before that. So we leave that, and I'm a little hesitant about going back. Like that was pretty much the whole talk. They were talking about like supporting the older people at the church and like helping them out and with financially, and it's like that was the majority of the talk. So I was like, I don't know if I want to go back to that. And then funny enough, Eli was like, I want to find a new church. Like this place isn't for me. And so we ended up going to First Baptist Georgetown after that, and we ended up staying there for probably, I guess, all of our freshman year. We went there and enjoyed our time there. But then we wanted to be able to serve more in the church, and it was very hard at a church like that, being the college students didn't really play a part there. And so then we ended up sophomore year, fast forward a little bit, going to River Rock where Maddie goes. One of our good friends, Mason, goes there, or went there at the time, still goes there. And the first time we went, wasn't 100% sure. Again, like new church, new setting, figuring things out. But in September, sophomore, this is 2019, I remember this day like very vividly, but I had fallen asleep with my phone next to me, and I get a text early in the morning, probably like 7 a.m. Kind of ignore it for a little bit, and then eventually like I go to check it, and I find a text from my mom that my grandmother had passed away. And I remember I just laid there for a little bit, just kind of processing, and then Nathan was in the bathroom. I was just kind of like, I was waiting for somebody to talk to, just like somebody to be there for me. And like I finally hear, like, I think you were showering, and I hear the shower turn off. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna climb down. I was the top bunk. We were in McCombs. So I climb down, I like wait for him, and I just give him a big hug. And then like, I don't know, that was a long time. It was probably not that long, but it felt like a long time for me at the time. And then we sat in the living room, like, this was on a Sunday morning, by the way, so like right before church. And just all of them were there to support me. And I think the biggest thing from that morning that I remember is that Eli, our good buddy, was like, at least she's in a better place. Like, she knew God. And at that time, I still don't know to this day whether she knew God. But that led me to like process in myself. It's like, do I really know God? Am I going to be the person like, I don't know if I live God, like I don't know where I'm going to end up. So that was a big, big change in my faith that day. We ended up going to River Rock that day. I just remember being welcomed. Like, I had only told the guys that I lived with, and Mason, the other guy that goes to River Rock, came up, just gave me a hug, just said like, I'm praying for you, and like, didn't need to tell him. Probably Eli. I still don't know who told him, but I still like. I really appreciate that gesture, and I remember, I'm gonna have to pull it up, but like the big verse I took from that, and I like somehow don't memorize it yet, but Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. And from that, like, community has been such a big part of my faith at Southwestern. Knowing Nathan, Blake, Lucas, who's not here, Mason, Eli, like those guys have been such a big part of helping me grow in my faith. And so, keep going, sophomore year, still going to River Rock, never left River Rock, still there. I start serving, I get plugged in, I start working on the AV and the IT team, which was like a good feeling, like being able to help out in the church, being able to serve for God, like that again just helped me grow. But then COVID hits in the spring, and I kind of fall out again. Just being home, stop going to church again for probably 6 months, however long we were home before the fall. But come back, get plugged back in again, start kind of like getting back into things. And again, that was junior year was a big growth year for me. I've been in small group this whole time. Like Nathan, actually, I guess Eli brought us a small group. Nathan and Eli started leading, and then I was actually in a small group with Val and Eli at the time. Yeah, still junior year, I guess. Sorry, didn't really prepare. Forgetting where I was going with this. From there, yeah, junior year, a lot of growing. That's actually the year that we started. I guess we started going to FCA sophomore year. Again, junior year, we started to get more into it a little bit. Sophomore year, kind of just going through the motions of it, like just kind of going to go, just like that one more thing, checking off the box, just like one more place that like I could be a Christian. And then I guess senior year, like it's been a big growing year for me. I feel like I've grown a lot. Like again, just with Nathan, with Eli, Blake, Lucas, it's been a big year, and I think just reflecting on it, the biggest part of me is like I said, like Galatians 6:2, like carry each other's burdens, like find yourself a community that is gonna help you grow, and then do it in a loving way, like exactly what Maddie said. I found it finally like our worlds collided more sophomore year than anything, but we came to the same like thing of just finding this community of people that cares about you, and that's eventually what I found here at FCA, and then obviously at TNW. Those were two places that I was able to come and be myself and like be a Christian in a place filled with other Christians. I think that my biggest takeaway and like my advice for all of the people still going to be in college is find that community, find those people, and like spend a lot of time with them. We've had a lot of speakers come in and they'll tell you like you start reflecting the things that are important to you, so like the music you listen to, the TV shows you watch, the places you go. That also goes into the people that you hang out with. So when you surround yourself with Christians and people that are even stronger in your faith than you, that's going to help you grow. I think the second thing that I would say is just also know your bandwidth. I've been plugged into TNW small group as FCA, and there was a good chunk of that time, I'd say sophomore year, that I was kind of like, this is a lot, and that's when I started going through the motions of like, I'm just going to go. Like I didn't get anything out of it, and like slowly I acclimated to that, and I'm so glad I stuck with it because like this community is great. I love TNW, love my small group, but just knowing you have limits, and they're all good things, but sometimes you need to take a little bit of time for yourself while still like going to these places. Too much can still be a little harmful for you and start making you go through emotions like I went through. So that'd be another big piece of advice I'd say. But overall, yeah, just find a community. That's helped me grow so much. And yeah, I think that's all I do.
Thank you to everyone that gave their testimony today. Maddie, Blake, and CP. Just thank you for sharing that. It's not always easy to give your testimony. And for those of y'all that don't know, or probably caught on by now, but senior stories are